Spectacular Slinger Issue 3, Bloody Hands. It was a cold, dark day in New York. The new dark suit was a lot warmer than the armored spandex, but not by much. At least this one wasn't too tight in the parts that mattered. Swinging from rooftop to rooftop, it seemed quiet in this sector, not all too different to the nights where he ended up with internal bleeding from an angry Oni. Or choking on sand from Sandman. Speaking of Sandman, Pete Tar has been wondering what he's been doing. Suddenly, while brooding on top of a gargoyle, trenchcoat flapping in the wind, he was blasted in the face by a flashlight in rapid succession. At first thinking he was under attack, he reached under his trenchcoat to grab his newest toy, but quickly realized the succession. It was 3 short taps followed by 3 long taps, and then 3 short taps again, aka SOS. He swung under the gargoyle and let himself fall onto the streets, his boots absorbing the impact without a sound. Across the street he saw his odd optic attacker. She was blonde and oddly dressed, like a mix of a Fire Emblem character and a consort of a wealthy man. Her body was well toned with muscle, clearly seemed like she could hold her own in a fight. "Hey Asuga, I need ya help. Some gals have been getting grabbed across New York. Now I can understand a few teenage girls getting picked up and even some harlots going missing. But this is record-breaking numbers, you feel me, Suga? Now normally I try not to get involved, but I'm starting to be afraid to go out at night. Would you mind looking into this? If you do, I can tell you what I know." The woman explained to the detective-dressed Spider-Man, not even questioning why he was in another odd outfit, and she didn't really seem worried though. This felt odd and sketchy. "You already know I'm in. Your name?" While she had spoke, he fired a web from the suit's more powerful loaded web shooters and hung upside down. She handed him a flash drive that just by touching the suit downloaded and started to show him. "Thanks." "Call me Dorothy. I work for a group called The Hand. We've been meaning to contact you to see about what you could do for us. Deal with the Kingpin's pimp and we'll talk more. Welcome to Oz, Spider-Man." The woman completely asserted control over the situation, changing personality so quickly Piers was left stunned, his vision contorting with vertigo as shapes and colors filled his eyes. She was a mutant and he was lucky she wanted him alive. By the time he got back up from falling on his face, she was long gone. "Why do all the crazy chicks choose me?" Piers asked the cold, dark night, getting up and fixing his jacket. With a press of a button on his trenchcoat's collar, the spider cycle roared to life somewhere in the city. In the distance, a black dot leapt off the side of the helicarrier, driving upon the water towards him. While waiting, he started a quick video of him playing Angry Birds before getting on his bike. It wouldn't be long before he was done analyzing Dorothy's file, but till then he might as well get some footage for the algorithm. Nothing felt more dark and depressing than empty bank account. The file was a presentation addressed to him, the first slide having a red hand print on it with the words, "To Spider-Man," written on it. For once he wished someone would get his damn name right, but that would have to wait till he knew more about this hand group. The following slides would be a very detailed presentation of the Kingpin's newest trade after the explosion on the drug market called heat, sex trafficking. Most of northern Harlem had become a cesspool of Kingpin-backed pimps who were making a lot of cash. One of these pimps has stepped up big time and become the king of the New York pimps, Big Richie. Richie was downtown in an impregnable part of New York, secured by the Imp's security company, Osborne's security company. Knowing their tech, he was gonna stay far, far away and need to lure them out. Luckily, these hand fellas already detailed how Slinger would and could draw him out. By knocking over his lieutenants and freeing his girls, he'll need to call a meeting, where Slinger can then drop in to say hello. Driving through Harlem, he got a call from one of those Osbornes, Harry, his best friend. Sadly, he had to deny the call and send a message. "Sorry pal, I'd love to do something today, but, well, you know that thing from high school? The therapy? Well, I'm doing it again. There is a new Kingpin and, you know. I'll call you after the session and we'll have pizza at my new place." Who doesn't love early morning breakfast pizza? It wasn't hard for Pete Tar to lie anymore, his voice easily swelling with grief. He didn't know if it was just because those were really his feelings, or if he was just a bad person. Lying to Harry, Aunt May, even Aunt Pepper was hard. He knew they would do everything in their power to help, but with what he did every night, he couldn't help but to see that fateful car bombing happening all over again. He had the Cycle's AI go through the dark web searching for pimps in Harlem that he could schedule a girl from. Not for himself, of course. Well, maybe for Harry? If it was high school, it's be up his alley, but nowadays he was the one bumping with supermodels while Pete Tar couldn't even flirt with the local grocer. Whenever anything romantic came up, he just found himself wanting to puke, all because of that one bitch. After scheduling the girl, he waited on top of a building alongside the spider cycle. Basing things off the old Kingpin's methods, his pimps would be escorting the girls to their appointments. It was a fear thing. The limos were also super cool to see driving around. Spidey will give them that. Once he saw the limo pull up to where he scheduled, he watched as the girl got out. He sent the spider drone over to her so he could watch her. The girl, maybe recently 18, looked very awkward. This was likely her first time being whored out, and she had a lot of the telltale signs of someone forced. She had really heavy makeup on, and her clothes, while definitely suggestive, hid certain spots that wouldn't make her very appealing. After a moment of nothing, she sighed and started sobbing to herself. She obviously couldn't go back empty-handed or she'd get hit. That's when the drone zoomed down to her and dropped a good amount of cash in her hands, alongside a note. The note detailed how she was free to go after tonight, and if anyone bothered her again, call the number on the note. Meanwhile, as she read that things had gotten out of hand. When the limo drove off to finish its round, Slinger gave chase. Very publicly, as Slinger made his early persona off of the fear and street credit he got by dropping thugs off buildings. The streets became a roaring mess as the limo drove like it was in Grand Theft Auto, attempting in vain to avoid the vigilante very clearly chasing them. Slinger watched as someone climbed through the sunroof and started to fire a civilian-grade ballistic assault weapon at him. Not a threat really, but would be dangerous to any civilians caught in the crossfire. Pressing a button on the Spidey cycle to go into an autopilot defensive mode, Slinger then started to send a torrent of webs from the new web slingers. The first one doming the thug and knocking him out due to the enhanced force packed by the dark suit's combat web shooters. With the thug down, the limo went off towards the roads that are traditionally less busy, and about 4 more guys popped out of the windows firing at Slinger. The autopilot having Slinger drive up the fucking wall to avoid them. Why is autopilot thinking the best way to avoid is up the wall? Pete Tar almost got flung off the bike as it moved. Would you like a detailed explanation, or are you going to keep shooting, Spider? A feminine voice spoke back, a lot of sass dripping from its voice. What the hell, Joanne? I'm an AI implanted into the cycle by Director Pym. I control the advanced functions of this autonomous unit. I'm afraid during your training wheel simulation my personality core was not activated fully, but now we are fully able to be introduced. I will never know why my siblings had actual bodies while I was given a motorcycle. Joanne? So she's the bitchy AI. Oh boy, she's gonna be Skynet if he doesn't make her happy, isn't she? It's at least a cool motorcycle? He tried to compliment, though he swore the bike growled at him. I will kill us both. Oh great. It's suicidal. Fuck you, Uncle Pym. Understood, just gonna shut up and deal with the guys with guns now. Slinger launched a web at one of the guards and connected him to a sign, sucking him out of the limo and ripping a door off. He would mimic that over and over, some ending up cheese grated a bit, but hey, what's a prisoner without scars? The limo, now out of thugs, simply pulled over into an alley. The driver stepping out and getting on the ground with his hands on his head. Wise decision, dude. Spidey parked the cycle, it angrily glaring down the driver, threatening to run him down if he moved, while Piers leapt through the sunroof and into the limo. It was time for his favorite part. Quickly hiding behind the trenchcoat as someone unloaded a pistol at him. Twisting over after the ammunition was spent, he broke the man's hand and leaned in close. "Okay, dirtbag. Where are your bosses, and I won't see how badly I can hurt you tonight." Once the pimp squealed like the pussy he pimped, it was easy pickings to bust into all the lieutenants' apartments and homes and deliver their beat-downs, stringing them up and securing all the evidence of their dealings like a good malevolent vigilante. After all that work, he figured that would be good enough for the night. He had to let things play out for a bit in order for someone to make a mistake. At a little past 3, he found himself back at home with Harry enjoying pizza. They didn't always have time to hang out, but they both still tried. Their relationship had its ups and downs, but Pete Tar had gotten a bit better at lying and Harry tried being understanding. Both basically grew up with Uncle Ben, so it was easy to see how hard Pete Tar took it. Around 4, Pete Tar got a call from the hooker, so he had to step away to take it. It wasn't her though, it was Big Richie. "Alright, webhead shit for brains. You caused hell for my people, and this is definitely gonna dig into my pocketbook. So in exchange, I'm gonna take the money from the city's pocketbook." Better run, hero. Shocker is going for the big one. After turning on the news and seeing the hell, a mercenary named Shocker who uses concussive gauntlets to create concussive blasts and shockwaves was now hitting NYC's biggest bank. Slinger and him had fought before plenty of times, Pete Tar even having a pair of the gauntlets in Avengers Tower as a trophy, but Shocker wasn't an enemy he took lightly. Having Harry crash at his place, he suited up again, using the phone call as an excuse to head out. Sure, it would be dangerous to leave Harry alone since the apartment was filled with Spidey gadgets, but what else could Pete Tar do? As he rushed towards the bank on the Spidey cycle, he chatted with Joanne about the best way to handle Shocker, settling on a plan of attack with the AI he pulled up outside the police barricade and sent in the spider drone under Joanne's control. Walking in alone besides that. They just needed to follow the plan, and this would be quick. Sherbert. On parole already? Damn, didn't know bank robbing was an approved career by the parole officers. I'll be sure to tell your pals that. Actually wait, when I send you back you can tell him. Pete Tar just verbally jabbed as he walked into the middle of the bank. Shocker had already got into the vault. Attacking him in there could destroy the money and the security deposits. Jonah would chew his ass out for that. Yeah, we've done this before. You beat the shit out of me, I beat the piss out of you. One of us walks away with the win. Done this 10 times. Spider-Man, can we skip the banter and get to the fighting? Sherbert Sherman was a good opponent, honorable dude, did the job he was paid to do and walks away. If he didn't like the employer, he wouldn't go back to them. If he really didn't like the employer, he'd blow their organs up with a concussive punch. Slinger has lost to him 3 times out of the 10. Each time Sherman never peeked under the mask and just walked away with the money. Never even tried to cash in on the bounty on him. Pete Tar respected him the most out of all his foes, but he'd make number 11 an embarrassment for Shocker. "Oh, but I got all dressed up for you. Like the new duds? I'm a detective. Though I haven't actually done any detective work yet, but I will later." Slinger knew how to beat Shocker at this point. It was as simple as get the gauntlets pinned where they can't do damage. Once they are pinned, then Slinger can pull him away and remove them. Yeah, it's really nice. Oh, by the way, nice thumbnail for the last fight we had. It looked pretty good, he says, remarking on a concussive punch to Slinger's crown jewels that ended up as the stream's thumbnail on YouTube. At least he was a subscriber. Okay, that's it. You sir, I challenge to a duel. He walked over and drew the web cannon, his web shooter shotgun cannon thing. Sherman, like the good sport he is, waited patiently as all the cameras were set up, and then they went back to back. After 10 paces they both fired upon each other. A web bomb for him. A concussive blast to the ribs of Spidey. The blast was like being shot with pure pressure to the ribs. He could feel some of the Oni wounds aching from the impact. It was negligible, however, he'd live. With the games done, they would get serious. Slinger launching in to get some good punches in, but Sherbert's armor was much tougher, so sadly they couldn't get a redo of Fight 5. Barely avoiding Sherman's rebuttals showed that Slinger had a new problem. Sherbert's gauntlets were even faster than last time, and last time he beat the piss out of Slinger. Ducking away and swinging around a granite column, he could see the blasts of concussive force flying past him. He just needed a few seconds to breathe so he could check in with Joanne. "The drone is in position?" he whispered as he clung to the granite, it able to take a few blasts for him while he spoke. "Not yet. The drone's laser isn't meant for such prolonged work," the AI explained, Pete Tar quickly responding before his cover was blown away and he fell to the ground. "Overclock the batteries, I'll keep him in position." Shocker's kinetic diffusion chamber had finished generating kinetic power as Slinger was getting up to throw fists in the middle of the bank. So he unleashed it. Now Shocker won't pretend he knows what AIM gave him, but he knew it was awesome, as when he pressed the button on his chest he shot an actual explosion out of his fist that sent Spider-Man flying through a teller's stall, raining glass over him. "I love those tinkerers. Come on Spider-Man, I'm ready to make this number 4. As Slinger got back up and fired another web bomb at him, he activated another gadget to create a barrier of concussive force, allowing him to raise his hand to shield himself from the web bomb before repelling the web junk back at Slinger. Slinger in response whipped his trenchcoat off himself and held it up as a shield against his own web fluid. Shocker had gotten some extreme new upgrades, maybe funded by the Kingpin. If the Kingpin was giving supervillains such tech, it would be bad news. The fight only pausing so Slinger can put his trenchcoat back on, only to be grossed out by his own fluid. "Damn, I cover people in this? Gods, maybe my girlfriend was right, maybe I am a sadist." And after that quip the fight began again, this time at close range, as it was a lot safer for Slinger to be up close dodging concussive shields than those blasts. Pierce could tell he was getting tired while Sherman had basically all the energy in the world. He was basically shadow boxing Slinger to death. They were moving out of position, so Slinger had to get crafty. He pulled the web cannon back to his hands with a web and shot a web bomb into the air to distract Shocker, then calling the spider cycle to come through the bank's skylight, firing its web cable at the distracted Shocker before dragging his ass around like it was the Wild West. Concussive blast going every which way as Slinger jumped onto his bike and hung on for dear life. Joanne finished cutting it. Suddenly there was a groan of metal overhead as a massive elaborate chandelier started to crash down, Slinger cutting the cable to Shocker and driving off. Sherman being buried under the chandelier, unable to get back up due to weight. "Sorry, Sherbert. I'll see you again in the court. Or maybe my freezer." With Big Richie's muscle down for the count, now was a good time to see what Shocker knew. Reaching down to touch his helmet and steal the information stored on his suit. It took a few hours to pour through all the data regarding Big Richie, but he had enough driving downtown towards the nice part of town as the sun was rising. Richard Big Richie Baig, born 1972, was a normal human with ties to Saudi Arabian oil. His parents were immigrants and apparently they really hit home with the American dream, buying a lot of businesses before Papa Dick, oops sorry children, I mean Richard, went into politics. Papa was even mayor till he got busted for corruption and was investigated as being a spy. Was never confirmed. With the name tarnished, Big Richie started to pop up in court and the county jail quite often. Built a pretty big record, but Daddy's connections kept nothing from sticking. Well, Daddy died in 2014, so now there ain't nothing separating Richie versus Slinger's fist. But where was he? Reverse tracking the number revealed it was from a corner floor penthouse in a not bad neighborhood. It wouldn't be hard to break into, but it was unlikely that Richie stuck around after sending Shocker out. Investigation was needed. Parking Joanne and the spider cycle on a rooftop, he swung over to the general part of the building the penthouse was at and placed his hand on a window to listen in with the high-tech spyware. It was silent, though he could hear an electric buzz in the air. He'd need to proceed cautious. He first worked his way into the building via a ventilation shaft, cause he loved being stuck in a metal tube, and then started to listen in and peep around. A lot of that electric buzz, even a bit of static, peeking in. He at first failed his perception check and saw nothing. But after a few minutes he noticed a cable along the ground and to the wall. Moving around to a different viewpoint he saw similar cables going up the walls. Trailing his fingers around the vent to find a cable, he listened good and trailed it around the cable till he found what it was connected to. A bubbling alongside electricity. It was a bomb. Bombs weren't much to a seasoned hero. Sure, they were deadly and was definitely going to take away that spectacular rating, but even military-grade explosives had weaknesses. Like a close-range EMP, for instance. Pulling one of his EMP pucks out from his trenchcoat, he activated it and attached it to the vent, cutting power to likely the next several floors. He jumped down and quickly disabled the bombs from detonating. Taking note of their experimental status, discontinued by sword due to being too dangerous. Now he was left with what looked to be a sacrificial safehouse. Walking over to the fridge, he checked inside, noting how it was loosely stocked. No one lived here really. Just used every few weeks likely. He flicked on detective vision and noted how all the photos on the walls were stock photos lifted from the internet. The closet was filled with low-grade guns. Seems like the Kingpin just gave him bombs and no good guns. Perhaps Shocker was this business's defense and low-level thugs were meant to just be faces? Possible. Investigating the master bedroom, he noted the bed had been disturbed freshly and he could find some black hair on the pillow. Interesting. Pocketing some as a sample, he checked the nightstands and found the jackpot. Richie forgot his iPhone. Lightly touching it gave him access to all its data, and it wasn't long before he got some new contacts, plenty of evidence, and Richie's next safe house. He was en route to the device showing all the limos under Richie's control. Quickly leaving as safe as he could, he jumped back on the Spidey cycle and quickly gunned it for 97th, going to cut Richie off. Once at 82nd, he engaged autopilot and slinged himself in the air. Joanne, go back to the Chimera. Swinging the rest of the way there, he watched Richie's getaway car pull up to a red light. It was easy pickings from there. Pulling out the web cannon, he fired an EMP puck into its side to stop it from moving. Traffic sucked anyway. Then he approached, landing in front of it like some kind of Punisher. As Slinger approached, ready to give the Pimp King his just desserts, the Arabic pimp got out of the car right before it exploded, sending bodies, shrapnel, and wreckage flying, and bringing back painful memories.